What does it take to sell a high-profile, high-stakes property? Let's get the inside scoop on one of the most well-known deals of the year, the Playboy Mansion. Please welcome two of the well-known names behind the deal, Gary Gold of Hilton and Highland, and Mauricio Umansky with the agency.
Hi, Gary.
How you doing, Mo?
I'm great. How you doing?
Sonny and Cher here.
Are we going to have somebody moderate this thing, or is it just going to be you and I having some fun talking about Playboy bunnies?
What do you think? So how is that? Boy, big congratulations to these guys. Without a doubt, worldwide, the most talked about real estate deal, bar none, in the world. And particularly because it kind of went up and down a little bit there at the end, right? It was leaked. Everybody thought the deal was lost. It was at 105. It was at 100. Like, nobody really knew what was going on. Everybody was rooting for you.
We still don't know.
Yeah. So how's the Twinkie guy doing? Good?
He's plumping up. He's full of Hostess Twinkies, and he's doing great. He's got to wait a long time, though.
Well, yeah, hopefully for Hugh, he has to wait a long, long time, right? What was the most challenging thing, Mauricio, for you in getting that listing?
Well, you know, first of all, I think that, you know, the interesting thing about this listing, and it's the same thing about every high-end listing that we all deal with, is, you know, you have to be creative, you have to be imaginative and innovative in terms of how to land the listing. I think that one of the things that we did in order to get this listing is that we put a tremendous amount of homework and effort into the listing presentation. We did not go in with a typical listing presentation that we do for every other project. We actually built out the entire marketing campaign prior to going into as the listing presentation was. So we actually had all the ads built out, we had the brochure built out, we had the book built out, we had pretty much, you know, the whole thing with a movie, with a concept, et cetera, et cetera. So we actually imagined the entire concept of marketing the property for the listing presentation, and we arrived with a whole bunch of collateral.
So that's a lot of heavy lifting and a big expense.
It is a big expense. It's a big house with a lot of money.
And did you work on it collaboratively to start, or did that happen because the owner chose the two of you?
No, they chose both of us. I had a separate, I was up against Mauricio and a bunch of other people. We had a listing presentation. We also put a lot of work into it. I saw theirs. Theirs was unbelievable.
But you said it wasn't at the time, right?
No, actually, I took a different approach. I said their listing presentation was unbelievable. I wasn't really about dissing him. I just was showing him the amount of sales Hilton and Highland has had in that price range, and that's the route I went. But I never, you know, I think it's really pretty stupid to start dissing your competition, especially when they're, I mean, Mauricio's a great agent. There's no way to deny that. So I didn't take that angle at all.
No, I was
Well, Gary and I have been working together for, what, 20 years now?
Yes, we shared an assistant for a while. And
an office.
Yeah. So we started he started at Hilton and Highland. And
how did that go with the assistant? Who took it?
Neither. She was
Neither.
horrible.
Okay.
Connie was way better, and she's doing much better now. So
it's funny. I thought he was she was doing all the work for him, and he thought it was doing all the work for me, and she was doing nothing.
She was getting paid a lot.
Love that. So do you find when you co-list something, I mean, I find in New York a lot of the time when things are co-listed, it becomes this. Everybody's pointing at everybody. I didn't do it, she did it. And he didn't do it, I did it. Does that happen here, or do you really work collaboratively, or did you work collaboratively on this?
I think one of the most important messages that I want to give everybody in this room that Gary and I talked about prior to getting on this panel today was the art of collaboration, okay? This deal happened, we got the listing, we sold it, and everything happened because there was complete collaboration between everybody involved, between the offices, the agents, the attorneys, the buyer, the seller, absolutely everybody. Had anybody pointed fingers, had anybody gone out and dissed somebody else, this deal would never have happened. It was extraordinarily complicated, it was extraordinarily hard to get, and it was extraordinarily hard to keep. Gary and I passed each other the baton multiple times during the process. We always made sure that there was one quarterback and then a couple of running backs. And when one had the quarterback, we allowed that person to be the quarterback. And we passed the ball back and forth a couple of times during the process. And it was a beautiful process. It worked out, and it was two companies that could not be more, competitive. And we got together and we opened up our techniques, and we shared our techniques, and we shared our advertising and our marketing in order to accomplish one mission, and the mission was to take care of the client and to ultimately sell the house. It took absolutely everybody involved to get this deal done.
Yeah, our mantra was the most important, and I think this is my mantra, period, is this is not about Mauricio, it's not about Gary, this is about getting this house sold. We're both going to get tons of glory from it, great commission, let's put this ahead of everything. And we repeated that on a very regular basis.
How great was the commission?
Well, we didn't discount it, which will be onto the next subject that Stephen will be talking about. It was not a discounted commission at all.
No.
It was a great commission.
Well, that's good news. That's really, because on this price level, generally, they're discounted. So that's
and
really good
news. It was easy to show. We just put it on a lockbox. It was no big deal.
Yeah. Nobody walking over any people in the swimming pool or anything else, right? There was none of that going on. No. Mm-hmm.
I never ran into any bunnies. Did you, Gary?
No.
A lot of monkeys.
Oh.
Right.
So besides the collaborative effort, and besides that you're both the best of the best and the top of your field, et cetera, what are the things that you have to really bring to the table you didn't expect to have to bring to the table to get this deal done?
Well, one thing that happened when, Mauricio originally had dealt with this offer, and a month or two later...
You mean the Twinkie guy?
The Twinkie guy.
Yeah.
And then a month or two later, I started dealing with it. And I remember I completely 100% knew I could get this deal done and get it closed, and it couldn't be more complicated. And I went into, I have a gear that I can do like once a year or I'll kill myself. And I call it missile lock. And my family, my yoga class, everything disappears, and I'm focused on one thing, and I am an absolute maniac, and I'm just totally focused. And I canceled 2 vacations. I didn't take a yoga class for like 2 months because I didn't want to be off the grid for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I'm back. And I just went into missile lock, and this is where we collaborated really well, where, early on he had that deal, and then I had that deal, and I just knew I could get it done, and no matter what was going on, I just 100% knew that, and that's what I wasn't necessarily expecting.
It does take focus.
Gary had tremendous focus on this deal.
And what did you have, Mauricio?
I had nothing.
Yeah.
I was just in charge of negotiating the price. And once I did that, I passed it on to Gary, and then he did all the heavy lifting. And then I sat back and asked him once a week how we were doing. It was very simple.
From your yoga class?
Like that.
You know what?
It was not quite like that. I'm joking.
One thing that Mauricio did that was really key, early on, I think he managed the client's expectation, and he was, gave him a really realistic overview of what it would be like, what the price was going to be. Mm-hmm. And he does it in such a way that, most people don't have that ability. And you just have the ability to be very blunt and in a way that's not offensive.
So what'd you say? If you get 100, take it, that's it, done?
Well, I thought we should have sold it for 50. No, I'm joking. I'm just joking. No, it got to a point where, we were going back and forth. We ultimately ended up with, some multiple offers on it, and it was the right time. And, I always say in high-end luxury real estate, is that the most important thing is that you have a buyer that's willing to buy the property, and you have a seller that's willing to sell the property. If you have a buyer that's willing to buy the property and he likes the property and he can afford the property, that's probably the right price, okay? And if you're a seller, you should look at that, unless you want to just buy the property back for $100 million and hope that there's somebody else. But it's very rare that when you actually get a combination of the two, and that buyer arrives to a property, and it's at any price point, okay? And they arrive at the property, and they can afford the property, and they love the property, and they're willing to buy the property, you're probably at the right price.
Yeah,
right?
that makes perfect sense. But it's convincing the seller that that's the case, right?
Well, you have to convince the seller with a tremendous amount of elegance,
Did you shave that day?
No, I never shaved.
You know, this is how we got it and how we closed it. I think it's interesting to note. I mean, this is how I got this. This is a little bit of a long-winded way, but in 2000, from like 2003 to 2009, I went all in on developments. And then, like, I remember I had one client who owned the Cosmopolitan, and he called me up one day and said, "It's over. There's no money left," and developments fell apart. And I had probably put 90% of my energy into that. And I found myself, I remember trying to get a $3 million listing, and they didn't know who I was because I had been off the grid for 6 years. And I decided to go to the Inman Connect in San Francisco. And at that time, there was probably a half a dozen real estate agents. It was all vendors and tech people. And I said, I'm going to reinvent myself as the guy with 30 years of experience with, who's tech and marketing savvy. And I met the guys that own Zillow. At the time, Zillow was not this behemoth. They were just a startup, and they were in not Startup Alley, but they were just a small company that was doing well. And I had used them in developments a little bit. And at that time in Beverly Hills, Zillow no one was using Zillow. They weren't even registering. It would be equivalent to like putting your picture of you with your dog on a bus bench. People didn't like a Zillow. And I owned all of Zillow in Beverly Hills, and I was killing it because, it really did work and people didn't realize it. So, but I started up a relationship with the guys at Zillow, and I flew up there a couple times. And as a result of that, and I met him at Inman. So Greg Schwartz said, "Do you want to..."
Was the Playboy Mansion a Zillow lead?
Yes, it actually is. This indirectly it is.
Well, I think it's Realtor.com, but we can argue.
So what happened is that Greg he said, "Do you want to list a property? It's Ashton Kutcher's and give away your commission?" And I said, and then we're going to give it to charity. And I said, okay. And as a result, and guilt was involved, and we had this like design house at
G-I-L-T, not U-I-L-T.
G-I-L-T.
Right.
And they did like a design house where we sell tickets, and I met this architect who did one of the rooms, and I gave him some business for about $1 million. There's a purpose to this, by the way. And I said to the architect, I go, if you ever have clients that aren't sure if they should build in an area, or they're overbuilding, or any other questions, not about selling, just if they need advice on real estate, call me. And like a year later, he called me and said, I got a client, and he's not sure if he's spending too much money in an area. Will you give him your opinion? So I went over there and I said, you're fine, you're not overbuilding. And that guy ended up becoming a client. And he ended up becoming the guy that got me the appointment for the Playboy Mansion. Wow. And I got the listing. Wow. Now, that just got me in the door. Right. But to your point earlier, going to Inman Connect 7 years ago was like weird. I mean, and I remember going up there, I go, I have an agenda, I just don't know what it is. And just putting myself out there and donating my commission was just also just kind of a strange thing, but you never know what will lead to what.
Yeah, and the path to yes.
So the Playboy Mansion was a Zillow lead.
Yeah. I mean that's
how many shares of Zillow do you own?
Yeah. And Mauricio, what was the most fun day besides the day you got the commission check on this deal?
Well, first of all, let me say something that for me, getting the commission check is never a fun day. I mean, it's a fun day, but it's everybody always says to me, what are you going to do now? And I'm like, well, now what? Now I got to go sell another house. Yeah,
we're unemployed between deals. People don't get that.
I'm unemployed now. I'm only as good as my last deal.
Yeah.
For me, my motivator on all of these things is just needing to succeed. It's competitive. I always need to be, I hate losing. I hate being number two. I can't stand it. You just always, it's a motivational that's just, that's that. The most fun day I would say was you know, every time I got to tour the mansion and I got to show it was just amazing. I mean, the property is absolutely stunning. It's iconic. Walking around those hallways, those rooms, the living room.
What those walls could tell us, right?
Photographs.
Oh, yeah.
I got invited to have lunch there one day with everybody. I won't mention all the names,
Yeah.
which was actually quite a bit of fun.
Where was your wife?
My wife was not there.
Oh.
It was all men. Again, I never saw a bunny there. But having the opportunity, the experience to show and sell that product, it's an iconic product, and to be able to get to do that and wake up and have that be your job and make money, it's amazing. I mean,
And not have to shave? I mean, think
doesn't
about it.
get any better than that.
I like the day I got the check.
Yeah. Well, I can't say how amazing the whole story is from beginning to end, and this will be definitely one for the books forever, and I pay homage to you guys. Thank you for coming up and sharing your story.